We have Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs taking on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills in Kansas City. This is your AFC Championship 2025 prediction and preview video. Hit subscribe if you're new. Also hit the like button. There's so many different storylines in this matchup. You have the Chiefs. They're looking to do something that no other team has ever done in this league history, and that is win 3 Super Bowls back to back to back. And they have been the 7th straight AFC championships now underneath Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. When you look at the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, MVP candidate in the regular season, one of the best seasons of his career. But he's trying to go out there and he's trying to do something that no other quarterback has done since 1994 with the Buffalo Bills. He's trying to get this team to the Super Bowl. With all that being said, let's start off with the home team, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs came out last week against the Houston Texans and they took care of business. They won that game 23-14. It came down to Patrick Mahomes being very efficient on the day, taking care of the football, and that defense having 8 sacks on the day. Now, when you look at the Chiefs, this is not the first time running into the Buffalo Bills this year. They ran into the Buffalo Bills in the regular season, and the Bills were the first team this year to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. They won that game 30-21. And when I look at that matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs, Joe Thuney at that time was still an interior offensive lineman. You've now slid him over to the left tackle position. Travis Kelce only had 2 catches, 8 receiving yards. And Travis Kelce did not have that dominant regular season that we're used to seeing him have. He's starting to slow down. But we saw last week, he had 2 weeks off. The Kansas City Chiefs did not play the last week of the season. They did not play their starters. They played their backups. So that's why they lost against the Denver Broncos. And they had the first week off in the playoffs because they were the first seed. So it gave them some more rest. It gave them a lot of time off. And you saw Travis Kelce what he was able to do last week. He had 7 catches, 117 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. The Chiefs came out with a clear-cut game plan to go out there and target the safeties of the Houston Texans and to target their linebackers. When you go against the Buffalo Bills, it's going to be hard to go out there and target your linebackers over and over again, but it's the way that Andy Reid is able to go out there and create mismatch opportunities. He may have wide receivers running underneath, and you can dump the football off to a guy like Hollywood Brown, who was not able to play in the first matchup against the Buffalo Bills. And essentially, you have him matched up on a linebacker. You have Travis Kelce. You can target out those safeties with Taylor Rapp and with Damar Hamlin. I don't see the Kansas City Chiefs going out there on a consistent basis and targeting the cornerbacks for the Buffalo Bills, but it is a possibility. Xavier Worthy was their leading wide receiver in the first matchup. He has 60 receiving yards. I don't expect for Xavier Worthy to go out there and to be the number 1 guy in this game because you have so many weapons behind him, because you have Hollywood Brown. And Hollywood Brown had a chance last week to come away with a huge play, but he dropped the football. He's going to be essential in this matchup because of his speed and his ability to just be a major deep threat. And we've seen the safeties give up big plays in the postseason for the Buffalo Bills. Taylor Rapp gave up a huge play against Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. Damar Hamlin has played better on the back half of this season, but at the same time, he's not one of the best cover safeties to have. So be on lookout for that. And Patrick Mahomes, in that first game against the Bills, he had 2 interceptions. We have seen Patrick Mahomes do a phenomenal job of taking care of the football. The last 7 games, they haven't turned the football over. They have played clean football, and it's been minimum penalties also since they moved Joe Thuney over to that left tackle position. So the tackle position is going to be essential in this matchup. I am worried about the interior of this offensive line because how would they look without Joe Thuney? They have looked okay in the last couple of games, but they haven't went against a guy like Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver is a terrific defensive tackle. Now, you can put him in double team situations, and you can just have Joe Thuney off on the left side by himself. But at the same time, you may be asking for some trouble if they do send a blitz. So blitz protection is going to be key in this game. The blitz protection was not good in the first matchup against the Buffalo Bills. They sent a lot of blitzes off the right side, and it had to speed up the clock with Patrick Mahomes, and they were dealing with some drops in that game. You didn't have Hollywood Brown. You didn't have Isaiah Pacheco. You now have Kareem Hunt. You have Isaiah Pacheco and Hollywood Brown. They can all be major game changers in this matchup for the Chiefs, and you want to force the Buffalo Bills to play from behind because you're playing at home. The last time you went against the Bills, you're on the road. And one of the hardest things to do is defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead because of how loud the stadium can get. And the best way to keep the fans invested is to stay up in the game, even if it's by 3 points. Make Josh Allen and the Bills have to play from behind, and hopefully you can force those mistakes with your defense. But look at what Mahomes was able to do last week against the Texans. Even though he didn't have the 3 passing touchdowns, the 350 passing yards, he played efficient. He got the job done because he's learned over the last few seasons without Tyreek Hill, he can dunk your way down the field. Take what the defense gives you. If Travis Kelce breaks a tackle here or there, you're going to be okay. He can get you into field goal range with Harrison Butker. And Noah Gray had 2 receiving touchdowns in that game against the Bills. Pay attention to that. Noah Gray only had 3 catches for 13 receiving yards last week. Xavier Worthy, 45 receiving yards, 5 catches. They're going to need the outsiders to step up. DeAndre Hopkins, surprisingly, only had 1 target on the day. 0 catches, 0 receiving yards. And the same with Juju Smith-Schuster. I expect for these guys to step up against the Buffalo Bills. They didn't need them last week because they knew the type of game they were going into. It was a defensive slug out. You depended on your defense. And the Chiefs have done this in the postseason over the last few years. When I look at the Bills, I look at Josh Allen. You may need more out of Patrick Mahomes. You may need more out of this offense in general. But don't go out there and force the issue. If you can go out there and you can win with just throwing the football to Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce and running the football with Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, play that game. Be nasty up front and try to wear down the defense of the Buffalo Bills, because the Buffalo Bills, they're red hot right now, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Kansas City Chiefs have that rest working to their favor. When I look at the defense for the Chiefs, it was a lot of missing pieces on the back end in that first game. When I look at Jalen Watson, he's a very good cornerback to have. He wasn't able to play against Josh Allen and crew in that first game. He was not available. And you look at this secondary, since he was able to return back to the lineup, he has basically transformed the secondary to being back within the top 5 to top 10 notion. Because we saw when they traded L'Jarius Sneed, they took a major step back, but you still have key names on the back end. But when you have a guy like Jalen Watson, he's not going to go back there. He's not going to be a Sauce Gardner. He's not going to go back there. He's not going to be a Patrick Surtain. But he knows his assignment and he could do his job. And it allows Trent McDuffie to roam. Trent McDuffie is one of the best cornerbacks to have. We saw this over the last few weeks, and we saw this a couple weeks ago against the Houston Texans. He had 2 interceptions. He did a phenomenal job against Nico Collins. Now, this is where I have a lot of questions for Steve Spagnuolo. How are you going to play this defense against Josh Allen and crew? Because we've seen the Chiefs in the past, they'll put your best wide receiver in double coverage, and they'll just let Trent McDuffie go out there and be on the number 2 wide receiver. The Buffalo Bills don't have a true number 1. They have weapons by committee. Dawson Knox, good receiving tight end. Dalton Kincaid, good receiving tight end. Khalil Shakir is the most targeted wide receiver, but they also have Amari Cooper. They have good players, and they have Curtis Samuel. You want to limit those big plays. Playing a lot of zone coverage in this matchup is not going to help you. It could help you against Josh Allen and stop him from running around and causing a lot of havoc with his legs. But at the same time, when you go out there and you play that man coverage, that's when you've seen the Kansas City Chiefs be at their best. That's when they can really put that pressure on the opposing quarterback. That's why they had 8 sacks last week. And I understand the Houston Texans have one of the worst offensive lines in this league. But we've seen Steve Spagnuolo in the past against Josh Allen put that blitz on. And next thing you know, he throws the football, goes for a major incompletion on 3rd down. When it's time to heat up the quarterback, Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best in the game. And now you have a guy in Charles Omenihu who is fully healthy. You may not have to blitz as much, because let's not forget, the Chiefs, they're having a lot of problems this season putting pressure on the opposing quarterback. Yes, you had George Karlaftis, you had Chris Jones, but on a consistent basis, they were not able to put up enough pressure on the opposing quarterback, and it showed them that they were very vulnerable on the back end without having Watson back there. You have Brian Cook and you have Justin Reed, 2 very good safeties. They know their job. They're very good in their individual assignments. I would expect for the Buffalo Bills to try to go out there and counter that blitz, and I expect for Steve Spagnuolo to go out there and basically shy away from the blitz early on. It's just later in the game he was sending in that blitz. But you have to pay attention to a lot with the Buffalo Bills. And Joe Brady is one of the most unpredictable offensive play callers in this league. But I look at Steve Spagnuolo, very good defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, and he's a great defensive coordinator right now with the Kansas City Chiefs. I expect for Josh Allen to go out there and try to play Superman in this matchup, and it may not work out in his favor, but at the same time, he's an MVP candidate in the regular season for a reason. but I expect for this Chiefs defense to not give up 30 points in this matchup like how they did in the first game against the Buffalo Bills. I like the Chiefs in this game, and one thing the Chiefs have done a great job of in the regular season and the postseason is play disciplined football. You don't see too many offside penalties. And yes, in the regular season, you could complain about the referees, but it was a lot of time offsides, holding at the tackle position. You rarely see this in the playoffs. Now look at Patrick Mahomes. He was able to dance around last week. He had a lot of major penalty yards that went into the favor of the Kansas City Chiefs. The reason why I bring that up is because the Buffalo Bills are going to have to be careful with those plays. You almost have to play perfect to defeat this Kansas City Chiefs team, because the Kansas City Chiefs have won 10 games by one score in the regular season. That's a great stat, but at the same time, you can look at it a bit different. A turnover here or a turnover there could be a major reason to why they could lose the matchup, and that's what happened in the last encounter. Patrick Mahomes had those 2 interceptions. And speaking of the last encounter, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills right now, they're red hot. Josh Allen just had an amazing regular season, and he's an MVP candidate right there with Lamar Jackson. And we saw what he was able to do last week against the Baltimore Ravens. He was very efficient on the day, just like Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen, 16 of 22, 127 passing yards, 0 passing touchdowns to 0 interceptions. James Cook, 17 rushes, 67 rushing yards. He averaged 4 yards a carry. But Josh Allen also had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day, and Ray Davis had a rushing touchdown. Josh Allen did not have an MVP caliber day, but at the same time, he played very well. No, it's not one of his best games in the postseason, but if he can get away with playing like this, that's great, because they played great team football last week. Yes, it came down to a 2-point conversion attempt by Mark Andrews. He dropped the football. The Bills won that game 27-25. But at the same time, if they were able to convert on that 2-point conversion, it's a great chance that Josh Allen would have came back and would have got him in field goal range, or possibly would have went out there and had a game-winning drive himself. And this matchup, if Josh Allen is able to still stay consistent and be efficient, they should be able to win this football game. Because in that first encounter against the Kansas City Chiefs, he played very well. Josh Allen went out there and he was a leading rusher. Josh Allen had 55 rushing yards on the day. He had a rushing touchdown, 262 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. And James Cook had 2 rushing touchdowns. Now for the Chiefs here, it has to be essential. You have to play the legs of Josh Allen. You don't want him to go out there and be the entire offense for the Buffalo Bills. But at the same time, if you are the Buffalo Bills, you want your MVP caliber quarterback to go out there and to make the right play over and over again. Don't forget about James Cook. And I love what the Buffalo Bills have done. They moved off Stephon Diggs. They traded him to the Houston Texans. They let Gabe Davis walk in free agency. He went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I mentioned before, they don't have a true number 1 guy. You have weapons by committee. And they may start off slow, or they may come out with a touchdown, and they may go 3 and out a couple of times. But when I look at it from this situation with the Bills, this is the best situation to be in. Because the Kansas City Chiefs, they can't go out there and just take one guy away and your offense takes a major step back. You have Amari Cooper, who's a very good veteran wide receiver. He's had some drops this year. He's not the same guy, but you can go to him on some deep plays because he's still one of the best route runners to have. You have Curtis Samuel, who is a big playmaker. He can hit his head on the goalpost at any given point in time. You have Khalil Shakir, who has the best chemistry right now with Josh Allen. And you have those 2 good tight ends, and Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. This is an open offense and stay balanced. This is something that Joe Brady has done a phenomenal job of within just the regular season and especially in the postseason. They did a phenomenal job against the Denver Broncos. You saw Josh Allen go out there and make crazy plays over and over again with his legs. You just don't want him to be reckless with the football. The fact that he was able to take care of the football last week and be efficient on the ground, that's great. Not every single game you have to go out there and have 300 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. If the game calls for that, okay, fine, sure. But if it doesn't, don't force the issue. The Buffalo Bills, they have the offense to go out there and to really expose the Kansas City Chiefs if they play this right. You could target out the linebackers. You could target out the cornerbacks. When you have a guy like Josh Allen, he can make a lot of plays happen. When he's able to bounce around behind the line of scrimmage and deliver the football on the dime. I will say this, though. You have to be careful because they have George Karlaftis, who was red hot last week. He had 3 sacks. You have Chris Jones to worry about, and Charles Omenihu, and also Nick Bolton at the linebacker position, and Trent McDuffie. So you do have a lot of defensive players you have to worry about. Now look at Joe Brady. It's an open offense. I've seen him use James Cook as a wide receiver coming out of the backfield against the Dallas Cowboys in the past. And we also have to remember this. Joe Brady may be a head coach in the league in the next couple of years because of how great he has been as an offensive coordinator. But it comes down to that. Can he trust Josh Allen enough in the second half? Because last week, it seems like he didn't trust Josh Allen because he wanted to put the football into the hands of James Cook. And there was a lot of situations they were dinking and dunking their way down the field. Be efficient. That's great. But if you're behind in this game by a touchdown or two, you have to open up the offense completely. But I like the Buffalo Bills offense in this game, especially what they were able to do in that first matchup, because Josh Allen, that rushing touchdown that I brought up a couple minutes ago, that was the one that broke the back of the Kansas City Chiefs. That is the touchdown that put them up by 9 points. And that's a touchdown that frustrated Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And just the next drive, he threw an interception on the day, his second one. And when I look at this defense for the Buffalo Bills, you have the key names here. You have Matt Milano, you have Terrell Bernard, you have the good players on the interior, and you have those cornerbacks. You could play a lot of press man coverage in this game if you want to, but you have to be aggressive against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I'm not saying go out there and hit Patrick Mahomes 3 seconds after he throws the football away, similar to what the New York Giants did with Tom Brady. That's a different NFL. You have to be careful with the penalties in this game because a major penalty could go for 15 or 20 yards. And the next thing that you know, the Chiefs are in field goal range or they're in scoring distance. And they're within the goal line situations. And we've seen this happen over and over again in the regular season. And we saw this happen last week against the Houston Texans. You have to play clean football, but don't be afraid in this game. And this is something that Sean McDermott has done a great job of with his teams. They've been very disciplined on the defensive side of the ball because he's a defensive head coach, and they've been very aggressive. They're very aggressive against Bo Nix. They're very aggressive last week against Lamar Jackson. Their rushing defense has been up and down this season, but a lot of that is because of the injuries that they were dealing with at the linebacker position. Now, Derrick Henry did have an amazing drive last week. You want to keep your foot on the gas pedal in this game against the Chiefs. If you're up big, continue to score, but continue to play aggressive defense. And when I look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, do you have enough guys at the defensive line position that can match up with the athleticism with a guy like Patrick Mahomes? I look at Von Miller. Von Miller is still a solid pass rusher to have, but he's not the same pass rusher that he was many years ago because he suffered that torn ACL. But he can't come off the edge. He can give you some very good rotational snaps. AJ Epinesa, he's been a very good defensive lineman. 6 sacks on the year, 2 forced fumbles, and you have Ed Oliver and you have Greg Russo. When I look at the offensive line for the Chiefs, it's going to be tough to put a lot of consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes. You may have to send in a blitz. And Sean McDermott is one of the best coaches in this league at sending in blitzes. We saw this in the regular season. We've seen this multiple times with the Buffalo Bills. They will give Patrick Mahomes a lot of problems with their defense. The problem is they don't make enough adjustments in the postseason. And that's more so on Coach Sean. This is when we get into the conversation with Andy Reid going against Coach Sean. The two head coaches going against each other. Defensive-minded with the Buffalo Bills and offensive-minded with Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be a great matchup. I can see the Buffalo Bills winning this game, but it's hard to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs twice, especially in the same year. And we've seen the Buffalo Bills do this before. They'll defeat them in the regular season. In the postseason, they won't have that much success. With all that being said, I do believe that the Kansas City Chiefs will win this matchup, and I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game 30-27 with a walk-off field goal by Harrison Butker. But let me know in the comment section below, who do you have winning this game? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, or the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.